Are you thinking about buying a house in 2025? Well, you might want to rethink that. With rising rates, economic uncertainty, and market volatility, it sounds pretty scary, right? But what if I told you that every negative in the housing market right now could actually be spun off as a positive and help you as a buyer? So even though I'm going to be going over some things that do sound negative, I'm also going to be spinning them into a positive so that it kind of does make sense, and it really gives you something to think about if you do want to buy a house in 2025 and gives you a little bit of the yin and yang, the good and the bad of it. So let's dive into 5 reasons why you might not want to buy a house this year, but they could also be reasons why you might want to buy a house this year. So let's dive in now. Hi and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Moynihan. I'm a real estate agent and investor based out of Keene, New Hampshire. And in today's video, we're going to be diving into why you might not want to buy, but if you do end up saying, hey, I still want to buy despite these things, well, in the description below, I have a buyer's consultation that you can just click, schedule a time, and we can meet up over Zoom and just talk it out, see if it's something good for you, and see how I can help you. So let's dive into the video right now. So the first topic we're going to talk about is interest rates. And interest rates are high, but that could actually be good for you. Now, the reason being is because with these high interest rates, it's deterring a lot of buyers from even entering the market. They just don't want to do it. But a lot of those people aren't really being realistic because yes, back in 2020, during the pandemic, we had super low rates. Below 4%, we had them in the 3%, even people refinancing in the high 2%, which is absolutely crazy. But for the past 6 months or so, rates have just been bouncing about 6.5 at the lowest and about 7.5 at the highest. And there's really nothing in the plans of the future showing that interest rates are going to be coming down. So even though they are high right now, it shouldn't be a reason to deter you from buying altogether. If you're set on buying and now's the right time for you to buy a house, then you should definitely be looking into it because again, it's deterring so many people from even entering the market that you're going to have less competition when you're going to look at these homes, and sellers are kind of understanding that the market's in a little bit of a shift where they're becoming a little bit more negotiable on the first offer and the price, depending on, of course, how it's priced, but they're becoming a little bit more negotiable. They're allowing inspections and they're actually giving some closing costs depending on the deal. And this is one saying that I really hate, but it's marry the house, date the rate. And I hate it. I never tell that to people. But again, with interest rates really showing no signs of changing, especially going any lower, right now could be a time that actually makes sense because yes, I don't think you're going to be able to refinance in the next year or so with a super low rate. But guess what? If you jump in now, you're going to be in front of the appreciation and that you're going to actually in a year, maybe 2, when the rates come down, you can refinance and actually come down on that rate. So you're only at that 7% for a little bit. Now, the second thing we're going to talk about is home prices could drop. But again, that could be a good thing for you as a buyer because right now, again, the market is shifting and sellers are noticing this. So right now is a time that you could actually get into a house with a little bit softer of a price than usual and again, less competition than usual, especially right now during the winter months because not a lot of people want to deal with home buying, home moving, and all that stuff during the winter. So if you're the one to actually continue to look, continue to put in offers, you're going to find a good deal. And with this little bit of a balancing act in the market, we're actually seeing, again, more room for negotiations for you as a buyer. Now, again, you're going to want to actually consult with your real estate agent on each house you look at, depending on if you want to put an offer in, because sellers are, or some sellers, I should say, are catching up with the times and listing a little bit lower so that they're bringing more and more buyers out. But people who are listing high, well, guess what? Those listings are just becoming to sit. I see a bunch of stuff in Cheshire County that have been sitting on the market for over 30 days, over 40 days, some are at 100 days, and they're not dropping the price. So that's like, as a buyer, you got to be proactive and go give them a lowball offer just to be like, hey, you're being unrealistic with your price. So it's one of those things that you can find an advantage of. And again, real estate's a long-term play. So even though I say prices could come down, in the long run, real estate always tends to go up and up and up and up. Even though there's some dips and some mountains, and that's just how markets work. Any market you look at, they're gonna have peaks and valleys. So even though you might buy a little bit on the down, well, guess what? Most places and most like home buying things, the NHAR, like National Association of Realtors, all these different organizations are still predicting for home prices to actually rise this year. But again, it's all dependent on the certain deal you're looking at in the certain house. Number 3 we're going to talk about is the market right now is uncertain. But uncertainty creates a lot of opportunities for you as a buyer. So again, this sounds like I'm a little bit of a broken fiddle right now. Sellers and listing agents are kind of struggling trying to find the right listing price to go at, because sellers still want top dollar for their house, especially looking back the last few years where everything was just going over. Every single house, it didn't matter what it was listed at, had multiple offers within the first weekend and was going 20 grand above list price, even though it wasn't worth it one bit. But that was just the way the market is. The market has slowed down, especially now that we're in winter. Even new listings have slowed down. So with that uncertainty of sellers kind of finding that good spot of listing, that's where you can find good opportunities. Yeah, the house might be listed for 400, but you could get it for maybe 385 because it's overpriced a little bit, but nobody else wants to go look at it because they don't think it's worth 400. Even though it's not worth it, doesn't mean you shouldn't go look at it and try to put in your offer and see if they take it. And right now with wintertime, most sellers that are listing their houses, they need to sell for a reason. Most people don't list in winter just for the fun of listing in winter and dealing with a move. They want to sell that house and get out of it. Whether they're buying a new one, relocating to a new area, whatever it may be, they have some type of reason why they're doing it. So as you as a buyer can work against that and get it for a little bit better of a price, get a better deal on it, whether maybe it's not even lowering the price. Maybe it's getting some closing cost concessions at the closing table so you don't have to put as much money down out of pocket. All these things are possibilities. And another thing is you don't want to rush into overpriced houses right now, because again, if they're overpriced, most of them are tending to sit longer and longer on the market. I'm not seeing a ton of price drops once again. It's not like these sellers are really being proactive on their end, lowering the price, but I have seen a lot of listings that are selling below list. So just because they're not saying, hey, I'm willing to drop my price, doesn't mean they're not willing to accept a lower offer. Fourth thing we're going to talk about is that rent is high, but that could make it more attractive for you as a buyer to actually get into a house. And yes, I understand that some home prices are inflated right now, but comparing it to rent and comparing it to where you are in your certain situation in life, and again, if it feels like the right time to buy, people know when it's the right time to buy. If you have enough money down, if you're really sick of renting and you're like, I really want a house that I can start paying off and actually have something that's worth some money after I keep paying this monthly mortgage all the time instead of rent that just goes into the blue and you never see that money again. So with that said, you know rents aren't going to get cheaper. Most rents are just still continuing to increase and increase and increase. So you know that's going to increase. At least getting into a mortgage, you know that mortgage is going to stay the same. Yes, it might shift a tiny bit depending on taxes and insurance, but it's not going to be these hikes like you get at rent places. Of course, even though, yes, market's high, like I said, over time, real estate always appreciates. So the sooner you buy, the sooner you get ahead of that appreciation so that you can start reaping the benefits instead of the current homeowner just continuing to reap those benefits. And another thing I want to mention here is, yes, rents are high, but there's a good kind of solution to that for you as a home buyer, and you can always look into it, and it's called house hacking. It's where you buy a small multifamily property, 2 to 4 units. You live in one of the properties. It's your primary residence, so you can still use the regular loan that you buy for a single family house, but you live in one of the units and rent out the remaining units so that, well, guess what? Now you're taking advantage of the high rents because now you get to fill that vacancy you have and you get to start collecting rent. So not only are you now collecting more money and making more money, but you're taking that money and putting it towards your mortgage so that you're living way below the average cost of living, way below the average cost of rent. And again, even if you don't go house hacking, when you get a mortgage, at least it's going to be a fixed price that you know you're going to be sticking to paying, and not something. I've heard people that they get rent hikes every 6 months. That's just annoying, unpredictable, and it feels like you're always on edge. And the fifth thing is, well, maybe I should just wait till 2026 to buy. But what if you missed the opportunity in 2025 because you didn't even look and you just gave up? But with this, it really should be not that you're trying to get the best deal possible or figure out what the best solution is in terms of like, I won this deal. You should really base it off the financial situation you're in and like, I'm ready for a house, I want a house. So go buy that house, because if you wait till next year, well, guess what? Who knows what's coming next year? Again, most of these housing websites that track all the data, all of them are predicting the prices to still increase by like 2 to 5% I've seen this year. So, okay, you're waiting until 2026. Well, guess what? You just missed out on that appreciation if you just bought this year and now you're a homeowner. So it's not necessarily trying to win the deal, because so many people try to win the deal, but just go off what makes the most sense to you. Are you comfortable with the mortgage payment? Do you have enough money down? Do you want to stay in this location for 5+ years? Because if it's a short-term play, most times that doesn't work out so well. So make sure wherever you are in life, the home buying actually makes sense and you're gonna see a good return on it, because again, real estate's long-term play. It's not this thing where you see on all these Instagram things where people just buy houses and flip them and say they make a ton of money, even though, well, guess what? Flipping still has a lot of expenses. So just because you make some money doesn't mean you made all that money. And it's really just finding what works for you and what's best for you. Because again, not like interest rates are showing, hey, in the next 6 months, they're going to drop at least down to 5%. There's none of that talk happening. Everything I've read, everything I've heard shows, yeah, you might see 6.5, but chances are it's just going to be bouncing around 7. So the current question remains, should you buy a house in 2025? Maybe not. But you could also get some good opportunities in it with people not understanding how to list their home prices, meaning you could get a good deal, you can get better terms. Home inspections are a regular thing again, where back in the day, 2020, 2021, if you had home inspections in your offer, you weren't getting that offer accepted. And then again, if you start buying, the earlier you buy, the more you get with the benefits of appreciation. And again, you start paying off that mortgage, that monthly mortgage stays the same, so you're not worrying about rent increases. But it all really comes down to, do you want to buy a house? Are you financially ready to buy a house? Are you liking this location, and would you see yourself here for, again, 5+ years? Because if you're buying and selling 3 years, chances are you're probably not going to be making money. You might actually be losing money. Not necessarily because your house is going to be going down in price, but there's cost to get into a house and there's cost to sell a house. So it's more you're getting hit hard on the sell and buy side rather than the actual value of your house. So if you're serious about buying a house in 2025, again, go down in the description below. I have that buyer's consultation. Just feel free to click. We have a 30-minute call and we can kind of talk over the specifics for your actual situation and if it makes sense for you to buy. I'd be more than happy to help and find you that right house, whether it's a single family, house hacking, a condo, whatever it may be. Reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to help, and I will catch you guys next week.